So in our today's webinar, guys, we are going to discuss about the logical access control. Okay, when I say logical access control, okay, generally whenever you are doing IT audit, ITGC audit, SOX audit, SOC audit, or any other kind of normal ISIT audit, governance audit, this particular domain is always there in the scope of audit. Okay, very common domain. This is very common domain, and in this webinar I am gonna walk you through the practical approach. Okay, there are a lot of people who might already knowing that how the what are the key concept that you need to verify when you are doing this particular review. Theory, most of people are already knowing. In this webinar I am gonna try to explain you that how those things are done in a real life with the help of real life example. Okay guys, so that is our agenda for the webinar. Okay, we will be doing that particular practical review. Practical, we would be following the practical approach for our webinar. Perfect guys, now let me just start first with the overview. Okay, suppose if someone is asking you that what is the meaning of logical access control, what is the purpose of implementing this control, why this control is required. Okay, okay, let me just explain you guys what is a logical access control. So when I say logical access control, logical access control means what? Here organization will try to implement the control with respect to the user's ID, with respect to the persons who have an access to the company's environment. So for example, whenever we are joining a company, we are being provided with certain access rights. Correct. First, what they are doing is they are creating our ID, and then for that ID they are assigning the access. Correct. So this logical access control is all about that area only, where we would be verifying what all users have been provided with the access, how they have been provided with the access, whether the appropriate controls are implemented to protect the access or not. Okay, and when the user is leaving the company at that time, whether the access right is revoked or not. Okay, so this is about this only. Let me just start with the first process, guys. So in logical access control, what happened, as I told you, whenever some users are joining, what we are doing is we are creating their IDs. After creating the IDs, what we are doing, we are assigning a roles to them. Okay, first is what? Creation of the IDs. Creation of the IDs, and after creation of the ID, what happened? We are assigning roles to them. Assignment of the roles. Okay, and after assignment of a role, what happened? The next process comes the user management. As a part of user management, what we are doing, we are doing the user access review and user recertification. Okay, user access review and user recertification, and after that there is a user deactivation. So this is what, this is a general overview about the logical access management. Now what I'll do is one by one I'll try to explain you each of the process again with the help of some practical and real life example. So guys, first let's talk about creation of ID. Okay. So first we would be discussing that how the IDs are being created when the employees are joining the company. Okay guys. Okay. So generally what happens, suppose if you have joined the company, so generally what happen, HR team will initiate one email, stating that so and so employee have joined the company. He has joined, suppose, in the finance department. Okay, the person has joined in which department? He has joined in the finance department. Now, as a part of this job responsibility, they will see what all accesses he will require. Generally what happens, whenever you are joining a company, they would be creating your AD ID, which is a normal access that you require correct? This is a default access which everyone needs. This is a default access which everyone need, active directory, correct? So they will provide you an access to the AD. Now apart from AD, whatever application which access is required as per your job responsibility, your access would be created in those application. Now suppose if I am a finance guy, as a finance guy I would require suppose access into the ERP application. Okay, suppose I'll require an access to some other applications which are related to my job responsibility. Then how this process will work, the there would be a process to create an ID, creation of ID. So here what will happen guys, that person will raise a ticket. What he will do, he will raise a ticket that boss, as a part of this I want an access to this application. Okay, or maybe sometime what will happen in a few company, you will see that this request might be raised by some other person. Okay, and in that request you need to specify what all roles you will require, then somebody will approve that. Okay, somebody will approve that, and then your access would be created. Access would be created. So this is the process how the access are being created in the company. Now suppose if you are an auditor. Okay, now suppose if you are an auditor and if you have to verify this particular process, then how would you verify that particular process? Okay, what is your auditor's points that you need to check, okay, in a real life? So as an auditor, first what you would be asking guys, you would be asking them, do you have a documented user access management procedure or not? Okay, first what you need to ask them, you need to ask them, do you have defined and documented user access management procedures or not? They'll say yes, I have. Then you need to review that document. Now let me just show you why we are calling this session as a practical session. Okay, so now what will happen guys, I'll show you how the user access management procedure document will look like. Okay, so for example guys, I am opening one document, one policy document. Okay, now for example guys, this is my user access management procedure document. As an auditor, you need to ask this document whenever you are verifying this first process of creation of ID. Okay, this process, in this process this document is must. Now, when you are asking this document, first in this document, you need to see what process they have defined for creation of the ID. Okay. So, for example, this is my document. I would be reading this document. Okay. Now, in this document, you can see that they have defined the user registration process. Okay, as a part of registrations, what they have defined, we need to read. See guys, this is very important thing, let me just tell you this point as well. See, whenever we are doing an audit and whenever we are getting that policy procedure document, first thing what we need to do is we need to read those documents. We need to understand the process in terms of how it is working, who is an approving authority. Okay, then how the request can be raised, how they are tracking those requests, how they are maintaining a logs of that request. So all this detail, first you need to understand that either with the policy procedure document, or either you can take a walkthrough with the respective process owner to understand that. Now, in this case, what happens? Suppose if you have received the policy procedure. Now, in this, what it is written, that system and data owner shall approve the authorizations of access to the system application on the production. And then there is a user registration authority who will verify whether the approval was taken or not before registering the user. So now in this case, what is the use case? I told you, a use case where a person require an access into the ERP application. So in this case, someone will raise a request and his manager will approve, and suppose organization has a centralized team who is managing the access, so they will also check whether the requisite approvals were there or not before providing the access, and then only the person will get the access. So this is the first point which we need to check, whether the procedure document includes that process or not. This is my first check. I need to check whether my procedure document is there. In my procedure document, whether that process is defined in a detail or not, everything is written or not, correct? Then second, what I'll do is, now I'll ask the company, boss, can you please provide me the list of new joinees who have joined the company during my audit period. Now this is my second data requirement. Correct, guys? See, side by side, I am also telling you that as an auditor, what you need to ask. Okay, so you will ask that data, boss, provide me the list of joiners who have joined the company during the audit period. Okay, now let me just show you that how that list may look like. So for example, you have asked this data that provide me the list of users who have joined during the audit period. So who will provide this data? Obviously HR team will maintain the details of users who have joined during the audit during the period. Okay, so suppose, just give me a moment, let me just open one sheet for you. So this is my file. What HR team has done, HR team has provided me the list. Okay, they have provided me the entire master. That's Sachin. This is the master. In this, you can see that this is the date of joining. From this date of joining, maybe you can select whatever number of sample that you want. So now this is your second data requirement. Correct, guys? You have received this data. Now my next question to you, okay, since we are discussing that from the practical perspective, so suppose if you receive this particular Excel sheet which contains the joiner list, what is your next action? Tell me, what would be your next action from your audit period? Just a hypothetical example, suppose 100 users have joined. Now as an auditor, you will not be able to check this. Whatever you have mentioned is absolutely right, but you will not be doing that checking for the 100 users, correct? That's true, correct? You will not be gonna check this
Correct.
for everyone. So what will you do? Rightly mention. What we'll do, we will select the samples. What we will do, we would be selecting the samples out of this list of new joinee, and then for those sample cases that rightly mentioned by you, you would be asking the appropriate evidences in terms of approval mail received from the HR, the approval email from the respective authorities, and then whether the ID has been created, and only the role which was mentioned, only those roles were assigned. Even in the ISO also, see, nowhere is written that how much sample you need to select. Everywhere what is written that as an auditor you need to use the appropriate sampling methodology. So what happens, whenever you are doing the audit, at the start of the audit itself, we need to prepare one document which is called as a sampling methodology. In our sampling methodology, we need to specify how many number of sample we would be selecting and what would be the basis of selecting those number of sample. Now, as an auditor, see, thing, you are independent. First thing keep in your mind is what? You are independent. If audit is telling you that I'll provide only one sample, or I'll provide only five sample, or I will provide only four sample, it is your call whether you want to accept it or whether you don't want to accept it. Till the time you don't have a sufficient data to provide a reasonable assurance, you have a full right to increase the sample size. No one can stop you from doing that. Population, so they have to share irrespective of the fact whether it is a large or small. For example, in this case, when I am asking the list of joinee for the audit period, then I want complete data. Then up for approval, I am selecting the samples, correct? Now here if audit will say that I will only give you 2 3 joiners employee, I'll only provide you a data, for example, for 10 days. This is not acceptable because this is my population. So in this case, for example, you are giving the example of antivirus or patching. So first, obviously, you want the population. And in case of antivirus, for example, you have a console. So in a console, you can go and you can immediately download the report in how many endpoints it is installed. So they have to provide. They can't deny that. And if they are denying, then you have a right to highlight the same in the audit report. Sampling methodology. No, we were discussing that. Yeah, out of that 100 user, how many number of samples user you would be selecting and how you would be selecting. Stratified sampling means what? He is trying to say that he will divide the population into the group, then from each the group he'll try to select the sample. But what would be your basis for preparing that group? Will it be department? Will it be location? Will it be branch? What? Based on criticality, add. So now what conclusion we have reached, that boss, whenever you are selecting the sample, just try to select the samples from everything, like each the grade should be covered, each branch, each location, and month wise also you must be saying that each the month, because that is also important. Suppose if my audit period is 12 month. Correct. If my audit period is 12 months, then you may want to select a sample from each the month. Dates also perfect, guys. Very good. I agree. Because in case of a sample, guys, keep one thing in your mind. Whenever you are selecting a sample, sample should be a true representation of entire population. Entire population, that is the main thing for the sample. It should be true representation of entire population. Now how would you make it true representation? That is up to you. So perfect. So one thing which you need to keep in the mind is what? Select all the characteristics of the population. Now second thing, which lot of auditors are not focusing, is what? Risk indicators. In every population, there you as an auditor try to find out certain risk indicators. Okay, generally in case of HR, generally in case of new joiner, as an auditor, what I focus on that aspect. Is there any chances, or is there any way through which HR can enroll the fake employee? This is a very big fraud in the HR. Okay, this is the biggest fraud in the HR department. What happened is they are creating a dummy employee. Their employee ID would be created, salary, bank account details updated, then every month the salary is getting credited in that account. So biggest this particular fraud in the HR industry. Now, as an auditor, I'm pretty much concerned about the date of joining. Okay. From the date of joining, as an auditor, do you know what kind of analysis I perform? Generally, I perform an analysis month wise. Month wise, how many employee have joined the company? Very simple. You can just apply a pivot table. From the pivot table, you can get the answer in terms of how many employee have joined during during that particular month. Okay, so I do month wise analysis. Suppose in some month I see the sudden spike, then I thoroughly verify that employees detail, their department and everything, and try to select few samples out of it. One more thing which I keep in my mind is what? I always try to check the day when the date of joining's formality is completed. So I'll just applying a one formula here, and with the help of that formula, I'll get the day. Okay, day when they have joined the company. Now, suppose if any day which is falling on Saturday or Sunday. Suppose if my company has a work holiday on Saturday or Sunday, So now as an auditor, I'm pretty much concerned that was how come the joining formalities has been completed on Sunday when the office is off. Correct. That is a concern for me. So I try to select a sample cases from those scenario where the date of joining was the week of. So here what I'm trying to tell you is while selecting the sample, whatever population is there in front of you, from that population, always try to think from the risk perspective. What are the major risks which is generally there, and how we can identify the instances of those risks in our auditing. Okay, so that should also be reflected in your samples. Okay, so now what we have done is, guys, we have understood that I would be selecting samples from the population, and this is how I would be selecting the samples. We have understood that. Now next thing is what? After selecting the samples, suppose you have selected 25 samples out of the population. Now for each this 25 cases, you need to ask the evidence of access approval. You would be asking, boss, you provide me the evidence of access approval. Whatever is mentioned in your procedure document that this person would be approving, this person would be approving. So you please provide me that approval evidence, that when he has approved and whether it is documented or not. So that you need to check. Yeah. Now, one more thing, guys, when you are checking this approval evidence, okay, when you are checking evidence of approval, try to perform one working here. What working can do? Generally, you would be asking the application user dump. In an application user dump, when you are asking that, you will get what? You will get the user ID and their role. User ID and their roles. You will get both the details, correct? You will get both this detail in the application user dump. Now suppose if you are checking the approval evidence for this 25 sample. Now suppose if there is any user which is Amit. Now Amit, as of now Amit has been provided with 7 roles in the application, and Amit is also there in your sample. Okay. So when you are checking this evidence of approval, at that time you will also check what roles has been provided to Amit, whether all that roles are being approved or not. Sometime what will happen, guys, at the time of ID creation, suppose the manager has only approved 5 roles for Amit, but in as of now, Amit has been provided with the 7 roles in the application. Now, this is an area of concern for me as an auditor, that was how come he is getting 7 roles, although the initial approval was for the 5 role. Is he has taken any other additional role approval after the joining? If yes, I want an evidence of that as well. Correct. See, your testing should not be ended only after checking the approval. Many a time what is happening, auditor is just checking, okay, approval is there, that is fine. But boss, in approval you also check the roles. What roles they have approved, correct? And whether that is aligned with the current roles or not. If there is any deviation, is there any deviation, then for that deviation, whether the additional approvals are being taken or not, that is also very important thing for me, correct? So you need to make sure this particular thing as well, guys, whenever you are doing the audit. Okay, try to reconcile the roles which were for which you got the approval versus the rules which the user has in the application as on the date of audit. So you need to check this aspect. Is this clear to everyone? With the help of this, with the help of this, we have covered what? We have covered this particular creation of ID process. Okay, great. Now guys, before we move further, okay, in this what happen is, generally, suppose when we are doing that practical approach training, in that training what we do is we send all this data to the participants. As of now, I am just showing you those data on my screen. For example, this, see, all this is the dummy data. All this is what? This is a dummy data, which is pretty much uh, uh, pretty much relevant in terms of real life, because that data is being prepared based on the real life scenarios only. So in the real life also you will get the data, this kind of data only. So we have prepared a dummy data. Okay, and when we are providing that practical training, we do share this dummy data with the participant, and then we ask them to check that data, and we ask them to perform the working. Okay, so yeah, that is what I want to tell you. So creation of user ID process is done. Now let me move to the next checkpoint that generally we do. So now, as a part of next checkpoint, what I'll do is I'll check, boss, in this application, what are the controls they have implemented from the password perspective. Okay. So from the password perspective, first I'll check that how the initial passwords are communicated. How the initial passwords are communicated, whether that password is communicated in a secured manner or not. Secured manner or not. So I'll ask, okay, you tell me how you are initiating the first or initial password to the user. He'll say that user is getting the password, the new password on their registered email ID, maybe registered phone number, maybe via OTP. They'll get that password, whatever. So now here, very important thing, what you need to check, whether that communication is secure or not. The communication is secure or not. And second, whether users are being forced to change the password at a first login. Okay, suppose once the ID is created, after creation of the ID, whenever he is doing a first login, at that time application should force the user to change the password. So we would be checking that. Apart from that, we would be checking the password controls effectiveness. Okay, now how to check the password controls effectiveness, let me just explain you. Okay, whether the password controls are effective or not. So for that, first thing is what you needed to ask them to provide the password policy of the company. Okay, so as a part of your data requirement, as a part of your data requirement, what will you do? You will ask that, can you please provide me the password policy? Now let me just show you how the password policy will look like. So for example, we are checking the password controls. Okay, so this is how they'll create their password policy. This is what, this is their password policy. So now in a password policy, first thing that you need to check is what, guys? First you need to check whether the all the parameters are being defined in the policy or not. Okay, all the parameters are being defined in the policy or not. Okay, okay, next is minimum password age. What is a minimum password age and why it is configured? What is an objective of configuring that parameter? Minimum password age means what? This is nothing to do with the minimum password aging, Gopal. For preventing a brute force attack, the application would be having a control. For example, if you're providing a wrong password for a 5 time 3 times, then your account would be logged out. This is something which will help you to prevent from the brute force or dictionary attack. The minimum password age will not prevent you from the brute force attack. Okay. What minimum age password age will do in preventing the brute force attack? What it will do? For example, here it is 1 day. How it will prevent the brute force attack, boss? This is 1 day. So what it will do? This has nothing to do with the brute force attack. Okay. Let me just explain you guys why this minimum password age control is implemented. Guys, there is one control. Okay, you must be knowing that control, that remember password. What does it mean? Password remembered. What does it mean? Application will remember the password, correct? Last three password or last five password, you can't use those password, correct? This is the meaning of password remembering. Yes or no? Correct. Now what will happen, guys? Think about a scenario. Suppose where your password, minimum password age is 0 days. Okay, minimum password age is 0 days. So what users will do, for example, your current password is what? Current password is India at the rate 123. Now today is the date when you need to change your password. Suppose maximum password age is the 45 days. Maximum password age is 45 days. So today is the date when you need to change a password. So what you have done, guys, you have immediately, when the pop-up came, you change your password India at 1234. Okay, then immediately, like, this you are doing continuously. Second attempt you have done, and the second attempt you have changed your password from 1234 to 12345. Again you have changed it to 12345, 12346, and again what will happen, you will come back to your original password, which was 1 India at the rate 123. So now suppose when you keep the minimum password age as a 0, what is the risk, guys? User can bypass this control very easily, because as a user, what is our tendency, guys? Our tendency is that, boss, I want to use the same password which I am using previously. So suppose in the application, suppose if it is mentioned as a 0 day, user can change their password multiple time within a whatever period of time they want to do. For example, within a 5 minute, you will change password 3 times and you will come back to your original password, which was 123. So you can bypass this particular control, password remember control, which you have implemented. But suppose instead of 0, generally your company, guys, you just check, company will keep minimum password age as either 1 day or either 2 day. Now suppose if this is configured as a 1 or 2 days, what will happen? Today is the date when you need to change the password, so you have changed your password. Now, boss, you need to wait for 24 hours if it is 1 day, or if it is 2 day, then you need to wait for 48 hours. Then only you can change this password. This password will remain valid. This is the minimum password age. This, that means what? Now this password will remain valid for next 24 to 48 hours. After that only you can change. And suppose if you are checking after 24 hours, then again you wait for next 24 hours. So with the help of this practice, we are trying to eliminate this risk where in a single day user can change their password multiple times. Okay, and sometime what will happen, the hacker may get an access to your account. They may suppose your password is cracked, what they'll do is they'll change your password, they'll do some activity, again they'll try to keep the same password, so that you will also understand that account is not compromised or whatever it could be, correct? So in order to mitigate those scenario, this control is implemented where company will say, in few company you will find this as a 2 days. The more days you will use, it will considered as a more stringent control. And suppose if it is a zero, then as an auditor, maybe you can highlight this risk to the auditee stating why it is zero. If it is a zero, then user can bypass this particular control. Is this clear, guys? What is the use of minimum password age? Is this clear to everyone? Okay, perfect. So this is about minimum password age. Similarly, failure attempts would be there, where they'll say that your account would be logged out if you are giving this much of the attempt. Similarly, it will say that we will maintain the password history, which we have already discussed. Correct. Then screensaver after 5 minutes of inactivity. What is this screensaver, guys? Screensaver means what? Suppose if your system is idle for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, okay, whatever the period, 15 minutes, then after that it will automatically logged out. So that control also you need to check, and user need to change the password. First login we have already discussed, and apart from that, one more important thing, how you are storing the password, that is also very important. Okay, so for storage of the password, you need to check whether the passwords are being stored in the hashed value or not. Password has to be stored in the hashed value. Okay, so you will check whether those passwords are being stored in the hashed value or not. Okay, so this is also you will check. So this first, what I've done is I have explained you that what is included into the password policy. Now as an auditor, what you need to do, you need to ask the company, boss, you provide me the screenshot or evidence of the configuration of this password parameter, evidence of configuration of password parameter parameters. Okay, let me just show you how that evidence will look like. I am gonna show you that for the active directory. Okay, in case of active directory password policy, how the ed password policy will look like, I'll try to showcase you that data. Okay, so for example, guys, this is how they would be sharing you the ed password policy screenshot. In this screenshot, what will happen, guys, you can see what are the parameters which they have actually writed in the actually configured in the endpoint machine. For example, password history. Then one by one you will compare that with whatever is written in the policy. For example, policy is saying the password length has to be 8 character. You will check whether it is 8 character or whether it's 12 character or whatever it is. Wherever you find a deviation, then what will you do as an auditor? Okay, let me just explain you guys what you need to do when you found any deviations. Okay, so for example, guys, in this first case, the policy is saying that the minimum password character should be 8. However, in actual you have configured 12. What will you do as an auditor? Can you tell me, guys? What will you do? The password length was mentioned as a 8 character in the policy, actually configured is 12 character. What will you do as an auditor? So this is a deviation between whatever is written in policy versus whatever configured. If you will raise this as an observation, audit is gonna literally argue with you. He will say, why this is an observation? I have configured stronger control than whatever is written in the policy. You can't say that this is an observation. And he is also right at his place because he has configured something which is more stringent than the policy. Then as an auditor we will say, boss, this is not an observation, I am just giving you this as a recommendation. Okay, I am just trying to tell you, boss, whatever you are configuring, make sure that it is aligned with your policy. So if you are configuring it at a 12, I would recommend that boss update your policy. In your policy also you should mention that the minimum character of the password will be 8 to 12 or maybe 12, so that your policy is aligned with the actual configuration. I am not saying that this is an observation. I'm just saying that this is my recommendation. So keep this thing in your mind, guys. If there is a deviation, you identify whether that is a stronger control or whether that is a weaker control. If stronger control, you can recommend. If weaker control, then you can raise the same as an observation also. Clear? Is this clear, everyone? So likewise, you would be doing this for all the parameters, each and every parameters, whatever is configured versus whatever is written in the policy. Okay. There is one more important parameter. Yeah, this guys, password has to be stored in the hashed manner. Correct? Hashed manner. Get the original value out of the hash value. That is the reason. In order to ensure the integrity of the password, it has to be stored in the hashed value. So see here, store password using reversible encryption. If it is enabled, then it is a problem. Correct? Store password using reversible encryption. Hashing is irreversible encryption. If it is enabled here, then you can raise that as a query that boss why it is enabled. Okay, ideally it should be disabled. So you need to ask this evidence, guys, in terms of password configuration. Now sometime what will happen, guys, this auditees, these people are very smart. They know that auditor will come, auditor will check whatever written in the policy versus whatever actually configured. So do you know sometime what they do? When they are providing you that snippet, okay, this snippet whatever I have shown you, they change the parameter. Okay, and after providing you the snap, and once everything is done, what they do, they again change few parameters which may not align with their policy, which may not align with their policy. So as an auditor, do you know what can you do, especially for the active directory? Because active directory is a very common, and that almost 90 to 95% organizations are using. So do you know that you can also fetch the AD password configurations parameter from the command line? Do you know how to fetch AD password parameters from the command line? No? Do you want to do this exercise with me? Should I tell you how to do that? So let's do one thing, guys. Everyone, if you have joined from the laptop, just press Windows plus R. Windows plus R. This will help you to open the command prompt. Okay. So just press Windows plus R. This is how it will look like. In this, write CMD. Press OK. Okay. Windows plus R CMD. Then in that you write NET space ACCOUNTS. What will you do? You will write this NET space ACCOUNTS. It will just fetch whatever is configured in the active directory. Okay guys, this will fetch. So this is give you some more assurance in terms of whatever screenshot that auditee has provided you is in line with the actual configuration as on date or not. Is this clear, guys? How to fetch that parameter? Is this clear? Yeah, perfect. So this is something which you can check, and accordingly if you have any deviation, you can uh, ask an auditee to provide the justification. Perfect, guys. So this is all about your password parameters. This is how you need to check the password parameters. And if you have any discrepancies, then you can note it down. Okay. Now let me move to the next process of the user. This where where. So suppose, guys, when you are checking the user management process. Now in the user management process, as an auditor, generally what we do, guys, we ask them to provide the list of users along with roles. Correct? What we do, we ask audit boss, you provide me the complete list of user along with their role. Apart from this, we'll ask some additional data, but first let me discuss about this point. Suppose if you have received list of user along with the role, now what will you do from that list? Let me just show you how does it will look like. So for example, this is your list. Okay, this is the list which contains the user ID, the username, what kind of roles he has. Yeah, these are the details which are there. What will you do from this list? Tell me, any one of you. SOD, okay, agree with you. Check for the segregation of duties. I I agree with you. Apart from that, what else? Approval, you have already checked, Gopal. This is the list. In this list, you may find the 1,000 user. Correct. So this list is not something which is prepared manually. This is extracted from the application. Okay, Manju, will do that. We'll do that as well, where we'll try to compare that list with the active employee and we'll try to see if there are any user who have left the company but still there. They have an access into the application app. But let me just tell you guys, before you do those working, first you do a very basic hygiene check and very basic control. What are those control? First thing, guys, when you're not speaking, please mute yourself. Just a request, okay? Please mute yourself. Yeah. So first, what will you do? You will check whether duplicate users ID presented in the population or not. Okay, very simple, very basic. This is called as a hygiene check. So in this column, suppose I'll apply the conditional formatting, highlight cell role, duplicate value. Whether there is a duplicate value or not, I'll check that. Sometimes what is happened that the list is prepared in a such a manner, if there are multiple role, then you may find the multiple login ID for the same. But it should not be the case where one ID, user ID, has been provided to two different users. So I'll check that. Second thing, I'll try to check if there is any generic ID presented into the application or not. Okay, whether generic ID is presented into the or generic ID is there in the application or not. Perfect. So
So,
generic IDs
yeah.
are the ID basically for which ownership is not assigned. Very simple. When I say generic ID is considered those ID for which ownership is not assigned. If ownership is not assigned, then I am very much concerned that who will be accountable for those IDs. So you will check that. Point number 3. Check if there are any system ID present or not. System ID present or not. This is also known as a default ID. System ID or default ID. Default IDs. Okay. Now, can you tell me, guys, what is the meaning of default IDs? IDs which are being generally come with the system. Now, in this case, default ID, what is the biggest risk associated with the use of those IDs? So for
There,
example, guys, SAP default ID, if you will
start.
write that, okay, default ID, list and password. So what I'm trying to show you guys that this default ID and password are presented into the public domain. So someone will say, boss, for SAP star is the default ID and this is the default password for SAP star. This is another ID and this is the default password. So what I'm trying to tell you is all the default user ID and password both are available on the public domain on the OEM's website. So it is very important that as an auditor, first we will check whether there is any default ID or not. If yes, whether that ID was disabled by the company, because generally this ID doesn't being used by the company's employee. Majorly it may be used by the vendor when they are providing any support related work and all. So majority of time this is being kept disabled. If suppose that is enabled, then we will make sure that the password of that default ID has been changed during the first login. This is generally a requirement of your system hardening as well. So when we are doing the system hardening, guys, this is a very basic parameter in the hardening, that all the default IDs password should be changed at the time of implementation of the application or software itself. So we will check whether that is being done or not. So this is something which you will first perform whenever you are getting that user dump. These are the basic checks which we need to ensure. Okay, suppose you get the user dump, then what you do as an auditor, you just try to start your analysis. Okay, try to see every ID map, username is mapped, okay, fine. Generic ID not there. Default ID, whatever application you are doing the audit, try to gather the informations from the internet, from whatever other sources, and try to see default ID whether it is there, not there. If it is there, whether it is enabled, the state of that ID is what, enabled or disabled. Disabled, I am fine. Over and above this, I'll also confirm with the audit team, boss, have you changed the password? Sometime what will happen in that user list itself, we are asking them to provide that, boss, you when you are providing me this data, please provide me the last login date as well. Also provide me the last password reset change date as well. So now I'll get an assurance in terms of whether the ID has been password has been changed or not, correct? So these are something which you would be checking. Now after that, whatever you have mentioned, you will check those control. You know, someone has mentioned that, Sachin, I'll check for the segregation of duty. Someone has mentioned that, such I check for the, compare. I'll do the comparison in terms of what the user ID which is presented in the application versus in the HR master. So this comparison I am doing to make sure that the user is active. Whatever users which are presented in the application, all those users are active. So you will do that comparison also. Okay. Now, guys, see whatever as of now I am explaining you, this you would be doing with the help of hands-on training. Hands-on training means what? Hands-on training means what? At a one side, I'll provide you this list of application, Excel sheet. On the another side, I'll provide you this HR data. Then I'll ask you, boss, now you compare and you tell me how many users you found where it was not presented in the HRMS. Yes, okay. So if you are see majority of time as an auditor, we would be performing our working in the MS Excel. So you have to be very much familiar with the MS Excel, the the use cases of that MS Excel. So somebody has mentioned that what we will do, we will apply the VLOOKUP. Okay, let me just show you guys briefly. See, I'll do that quickly. Okay, so for example, this is my HR list. Okay, and suppose this is my user list. Now I want to compare both the data. I want to find out, is there any user who is not there in the HR? So I'll add one column here. I'll add one column here. In that column, I'll say that boss, let me apply the VLOOKUP with the HR master data. So when you are applying the VLOOKUP, at that time, what is important, there has to be a unique identifier in both the sheet. For example, in this case, my employee ID is the unique identifier. So equals to VLOOKUP, comma, this is my data. So I am selecting this data, comma, 1, comma 0. So I have applied this VLOOKUP. I am dragging it. Now what I'll do is I'll select the values where it is coming as NA, where it is coming as NA. So for example, these are the cases. So now I'll ask the company, boss, can you please provide me the status of this 101 cases? In 101 cases, I am unable to find these users in your HR master. So there might be a case that this user might have already left the company, but you have not revoked their accesses. Correct? There might be a case that you have they revoked their accesses, but it is not updated here in the application master. So this is what, this is a query for you, this is an observation for you, and this is how you will compare the application data with the HR master. What you have done, you have applied the VLOOKUP here, that we will keep that in a disable mode, will change the password, will ensure the strong password. Now here also there is a thing like, that is the reason we have discussed about strong password policy. Correct? That length, if you will increase the length, then it would be difficult to guess, because see, that password breaking tool will also work on what, they will also work based on some logic. Correct? They'll also work based on what, certain logics which are being defined. Correct? And sometime what will happen, they may take, suppose if you increase the password length, then it is difficult to break those password. I'll just try to show you one image. Okay, uh, you know just for your understanding, because uh, just let me show you that. Yeah, for example, see, this is how this is being prepared. Time it take to a hacker to brute force your password. So it depends. For example, if my password is 12 characters, and if my password is includes what, if it includes numbers, special characters, and everything, it may take 400 years a tool to break the password. Are you getting my point? Although you are right that sometimes they have a list of commonly used password, this that is true. But see, you breaking the password by using this tool is not an easy task. Okay, and it also depends that how strong your password is. Correct? If your password is Z character, includes the lower number, upper characters, lower character, numbers, symbols, and everything, it may take how much time? For example, this much time, 3 weeks, 9 characters. So likewise, see, it also depends how strong your password is. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. Now let me move to the final thing, which is a deactivation of the user. Now this is very critical thing, guys. What happen is, suppose whenever user is leaving the company, okay, then at that time it is very important for an organization to ensure that their accesses is being revoked, maybe within a 24 hours, in some company maybe on or before his last working day. Okay, so as an auditor, what we generally do, again, we will ask to the HR, boss, Can you please provide me the list of employee who have left the company during my audit period? I'll get that list. From this list, I'll do a comparison. Again, when I'll get this list of employee who have left the company, second step, what I'll do, I'll select the samples. So whatever I have explained you guys, initially, so same, you will apply your sampling methodology, you will select the appropriate number of sample. Now for those sample cases, you will be asking the company, boss, can you provide me any evidences in terms of when the user ID has been deactivated for those sample cases? So this is one method of doing it. Sometime what will happen, guys, sometime the application has a functionality where it do captures the date when the ID was disabled. Okay, and suppose if that list can be exported from the application, then that is a very I would say very helpful for auditor to do a comparison, and as an auditor you can apply your analysis on entire population rather than depending on the samples. Okay, so for example, what will happen, guys, let me just try to explain you this. This is my list of employee who have left. I can see here the count is coming 101 users who have left my company during the audit period. So now suppose if I have to pick a sample out of this, so I'll select sample 25 users. These users have left the company during the audit period. Sorry, this many have left the company. I have selected this much of the samples out of it, correct? 25. Okay. So now you would be checking the evidences for this 25 user. Now suppose the application has a list. Application is a feature where he can provide you the date of disablement, and suppose if this data can also be exported. So for example, guys, if I talk about applications like an SAP, Oracle, all these applications generally has a feature where you can export the data, and when you export the data, at that time the disablement date will also be captured. So suppose if that is the case, then what will you do? Again, it is a very simple task for you. Just apply the VLOOKUP, compare this two list, okay, the list of employee who have left the company versus the list which you are extracting from the application, list which you have exported from the application, exported from the application. You compare both the list, okay, and maybe you will get your outcome in terms of how many users have left the company, whether their ID was deactivated or not. If deactivated, then what you need to check, you need to check whether that deactivation was happened on time or not. Okay, this is very important. You need to check whether that deactivation was done on time or not. Deactivation was done or time or not. Suppose if there is any delay, suppose if there is any delay, so then as an auditor, what are the points you need to do? You need to ask the reason why there was a delay. Why there was a delay? You would be asking, have you taken any exception approval for the same? Sometime what happens, suppose if you are leaving a company, then you may need to take an exception approval that, okay boss, Ganesh is leaving the company, but Ganesh manager is saying that I want an access to Ganesh user ID for 7 days because we want to do some transition, whatever we for business purpose, I want an exception. So that exception approval has to be documented. Point number 3, you would be checking the logs of the Ganesh user ID, that after his last working day, whether any transaction has been passed into the applications or not. If that transaction is passed, then it is considered as an unauthorized transaction because Ganesh has already left the company. Now you can't use his ID for the purpose of passing a transaction. Okay, so you will do that as well. Okay, you will check whether the if is there any logs available. If logs are available, then it is a serious concern for you. Okay, so likewise, you would be doing this workings for what? For the deactivation cases. Yeah, in this case, the approval mail will not solve your purpose, because what is our purpose as an auditor? Our purpose is we need to check whether that ID is disabled or not. Now, generally, what how this process works, let me just give you a clarity. For example, Ganesh has put his paper. He has, uh, uh, you know, he has resigned from the job. Now, HR is the one who is being intimated first that okay, today Ganesh has resigned from the company. Our policy says that he has to serve the notice period of 3 months. So his last working day is now 25th June. Then if company will try to retain, he'll try to retain. But suppose he has given the final decision that no, I am leaving the company now, that means what, his last working day is finalized. Now what HR team will do, HR team maybe 1 week before this last working day, he will initiate an email to everyone including IT that Ganesh is leaving the company on 25th June. This is the approved last working day. So make sure that all his accesses are being revoked and all the assets which are being handed over to the Ganesh are returned to the company. So this is how HR will just initiate. Now in this case, approval and all will not work, correct? Then after initiating, what will happen? On the 25th June 2025, his accesses will be removed. So company generally have a process of signing that clearance form, correct? You need to take a clearance from everyone and assets are handovered, and then as an auditor we check whether those logical access are being disabled or not, correct? So this is how the entire process works. So in this entire process, what is the main thing? The main thing is that when the ID was deactivated, correct, approval and all will not serve your purpose. This is what I am trying to tell you. What will serve your purpose? That when the ID was deactivated, whether it is deactivated on time or not. If suppose if this ID is deactivated on 25th July, then this is a concern for you. Perfect, guys. So this is what we would be checking. See, guys, again, I have just given you, I would say, understanding that what are the things you need to verify in the logical access control. Okay, when we are when we will be doing that practical session, guys, like the actual practical session, during that session, as of now, for example, since you were not having the dummy data in hand, you were unable to do those exercises. But when I would be doing that practical session, at that time I will be sharing you all this data, and then you would be performing the workings. As of now, for example, in our today's webinar, although we have performed only 2 or 3 workings, okay, but during the practical session, guys, there would be lot of working, lot of data, lot of data analysis. So at that time, I feel that you will get some more better confidence. See, what happened when you're doing something on your own, that built a confidence that will help you in terms of what you exactly need to do when you are there on the field, when you are doing the audit on the ground. Okay, so that kind of confidence definitely you will get once you have that data and once you do those all this activity whichever we have discussed with the help of the dummy data. Okay. Okay, guys, so that is all from my side, guys. Okay, if you are interested in this particular course, the practical training approach course, reach out to the infosec team. They'll help you with the agenda, they'll help you with the training content what we are covering. This is called as a practical CGRC training course. Okay, maybe you can give the reference that we have attended one webinar on this stated, and you are interested. All the details in terms of fees, duration, team gonna share with you. Okay, guys, they will share you all the details. What is the fees? What is the structure? What is the uh, agenda, what is the detailed syllabus, everything you will get. Okay. Perfect, guys. That is all from my side. I hope you have enjoyed the session. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. And that's all from my side, guys. Thank you so much.